At my son's wedding, my daughter-in-law smeared hot stew across my face. "Try it, old hag," she hissed, and the room froze. The spoon clattered onto the plate like a bell in a quiet church. For a second, all I heard was the band losing its rhythm. Then someone near the bar went white as linen and screamed, Satsam, she's a billionaire! The bride's hands still hovered in the air, copper broth dripping from her manicured nails onto my dress. She laughed, then saw people looking past her, eyes widening, mouths opening. The maitre d' stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. My son Daniel stood at the head table, jaw clenched, not moving. He didn't reach for a napkin. He didn't reach for me. "Say something," the bride challenged, louder now, performing for the guests. "You've judged me from the start. How does it taste?" She leaned in so close I could smell the wine on her breath and the roses pinned into her hair. "It's hot," I said quietly. I dabbed at my cheek with the corner of the tablecloth and felt the sting spread. My heart did the strangest thing. Steadied. Around us came the faint scramble of phones unlocking, screens blinking to life. A young cousin whispered, "Oh my God," and turned his phone to show a headline with my maiden name spelled in letters big enough to jar the flowers in their vases. I looked at my son. "Daniel," I said, nothing more. He stared at the floor. The bride's mother tugged at her sleeve. "Emma," she murmured, "sit down." But Emma had found the center of the room and wasn't ready to give it back. "She plays the victim," Emma announced, sweeping a hand toward me. "But she's been cheap and cruel since I met her. She wouldn't even pay for our honeymoon." The room, full of people I had fed and held through storms and small disasters, watched me with a new, brutal curiosity. How could my own son let this happen? How did the boy who once fell asleep on my shoulder in church become a man who measured love by applause? I set the tablecloth back down, neat as folding a baby blanket. "I didn't pay for your honeymoon," I said, "because I fund other things." I let my gaze travel to the doors, to the balcony, to the chandelier that had been rewired last month on an invoice with a name no one here recognized as mine. They had no idea how long I had been quiet or why. They had no idea what had already been signed. Emma opened her mouth to spit more fire. I felt the burn on my skin and something colder, older, brighter in my chest. But to understand why I stood there and smiled, and why that single headline would change every face in that room, I have to go back to the beginning. I am 72. I have been a widow for 12 years. The world thinks I grew old on a teacher's pension and a modest insurance payout. The world is half right. I kept the pension. I invested the payout. When my husband died, I sold the little house we raised our children in and bought 3 crumbling duplexes with sagging porches and good bones. I scrubbed the floors myself. I learned to argue with contractors without raising my voice. I learned the name of every tenant's dog. I found a lawyer who listened, and I listened harder. When rents came in, I didn't spend them. I let them pile up like apples in a cool cellar. On Tuesdays, I cooked for the church kitchen. On Thursdays, I learned spreadsheets. On Saturdays, I went to yard sales and talked to women my age who wanted to sell businesses their children had no interest in. A seamstress shop with quiet clients, a catering company with recipes written in pencil, a little cleaning service with 2 vans, and 4 women who knew how to make a room look like it had been treated kindly. I did not tell anyone that when I signed papers I used my maiden name. It felt like folding a secret back into my pocket. One afternoon, 7 years ago, a young man with a shy stutter delivered a tray of test pastries to my door. He'd heard the church kitchen needed a better supplier for holiday orders. He was too early and his hand shook. The pastries were too sweet. But he listened when I told him so, wrote everything down like I was the only person who had ever spoken straight to him. 3 years later, that young man sold his frozen meals company to a national chain, and the tiny seed investment I had made, enough to buy a dependable car, became a forest. The chain asked me to sit on a board. I said no. I prefer kitchens to boardrooms. But I let the money work. The duplexes became small buildings. The catering company learned new tricks and kept its pencil recipes. I tell you this so you understand. I did not become a billionaire because lightning struck. When lightning came, I was already holding a tall iron rod. I stood as still as I could and let it pass through me into the ground, where it made things grow. Daniel never wanted to talk about any of this. Money embarrassed him in the way it embarrasses people who are sure they deserve it. He wanted to be seen as self-made, even while asking to borrow. He is bright, handsome, and kind in a way that always required an audience. "Mom," he would say, holding my hands and looking at me as if we were on stage, "you know I'll pay you back." He is 41. He has paid me back twice. When he brought Emma home, she came with a smile as bright as the cut crystal bowl she admired on my shelf. She stayed in the living room after dinner and asked questions that sounded like compliments. "You keep this house so simple," she said, running a finger along my windowsill. "It's almost minimal." She was wearing a dress that cost more than my first car. My son looked at her as if she were a planet he had always wanted to visit. I offered coffee and lemon bars. She took one bite and tilted her head. "They're good," she said. "A little old-fashioned." "Like me," I said. She laughed, but her eyes didn't. She worked in marketing. She took content days and self-care days. She photographed her coffee and leaned her head on my son's shoulder, and when she thought I had left the room, whispered, "We'll sell this place, right? That money could actually do something." Which is how I learned the right way to step softly on old hardwood. I did not dislike her then. I wanted to. I tried not to. She knew what to say in front of the people who loved her. She knew how to make a room turn in her direction and hum with approval. But when we were alone, she would speak to me with a smile that never touched her eyes, the way a saleswoman talks to a woman who has wandered into a store she cannot afford. She brought her mother once, a woman with lipstick too bright for daylight and a laugh that hit the ceiling. "You're lucky," her mother said, tapping my arm. I tell Emma, if I'd had a husband with a pension, I wouldn't still be cutting coupons. Kids these days have to hustle, you know? Life expects more. Experiences, travel, content. "Content?" I asked. "For her channels," her mother said. "She does sponsored packages. We're trying to help Daniel build his personal brand too. He photographs well." I set out the coffee. I did not say, "Your daughters will hang my son on a wall," and call it a gallery. When they got engaged, they asked if I would pay for a destination experience. I offered to cover the food and an open bar near home so the grandparents and old friends could attend. Emma's mouth made a polite shape. "We were thinking Tuscany," she said, "or at least something with vineyard vibes." "Vines grow here," I said. "Grapes don't care about Instagram." Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom, it would mean a lot." "It would look like something," his eyes added. I said I would give them the same gift I had given my daughter, a lump sum for a down payment or to start a business, with the condition that they meet with a financial planner and sign a prenuptial agreement that kept my assets separate and protected his if things went sour. "You think we're going to fail?" Emma asked, her voice cold and flat. "What kind of woman assumes divorce before the vows? What kind of woman signs a contract before she understands the terms?" I asked. "A careful one, a woman who has learned." They did not like hearing that. Daniel called me later. "You embarrass me," he said. "Emma said you treated her like a threat." "Is she?" I asked. "Of course not. She loves me. He waited. Don't you want me to be happy? What mother doesn't? But happiness bought with someone else's money has a way of collapsing when the bill arrives. I gave the gift to my lawyer instead. We set up a trust for Daniel that would pay out annually, modestly, contingent on employment, sobriety, and good standing with certain basic decencies. No gambling, no abuse, no public humiliation of immediate family. The clause was my idea. My lawyer raised an eyebrow. You'll never enforce it, she said. Watch me, I replied. I bought the venue 3 months before the wedding. It was not a grand plan. It came to me the way some recipes do, rising in the night, fully formed. The owners were tired and ready to retire to Florida. They wanted someone who would keep the staff. I promised. I used an LLC with my maiden name and the name of the creek that ran behind my childhood home. The chandelier flickered. I replaced the wiring and paid the electrician double. The staff continued to think of me as the quiet investor who read the reservation ledger like a storybook. When Emma toured the hall, she stopped under the chandelier and spun. This, she said, this is the moment. The light is perfect. She never looked up to wonder who paid for the bulbs. You might ask, why keep the secret? Why not tell my son or my daughter that the quiet mother who clipped coupons and cooked for the church had built something large and lasting? Because there are 2 ways to tell a family you have money. You can open your arms or open a door marked exit. I had seen money turn people into passengers in their own lives. I wanted the children I raised, the ones who wore hand-me-downs and threw rocks into lakes for the joy of the splash, to keep the muscles they had built. I wanted to see who they were when they thought no one was watching. The wedding day dawned bright and windy. I wore a blue dress that matched nothing and everything. I pinned my husband's cufflinks into the lining as if they were eyes watching. Emma arrived with a retinue. They swept in like a parade, hair sprayed into helmets, dresses that hissed like grasshoppers. She stood before me like a statue and extended her cheek without meeting my eyes. Don't cry, she said. Make up. I never ruin good work, I said. She did not hear me. During the ceremony, Daniel looked at her as if he had been allowed to sit at a table where he'd always wanted a seat. He looked at me once, quickly, the way children do, when they've done something they cannot undo and are braced for the consequences. I smiled. I held the small bouquet my granddaughter had made me from leftover stems. The wind tugged at the veil. Someone laughed. Someone cried. The vows were traditional, then not, then personal in a way that made the old couples shift in their chairs. At the reception, speeches settled like birds on a wire. The best man told a story about a fishing trip that went nowhere and caught nothing. Emma's sister talked about manifesting and getting the life you deserve. I spoke briefly about promises and quiet work. I gave them a wrapped box full of folded recipes, cards written in my cramped, stubborn hand. For rainy days, I said. Emma thanked me with a smile so sharp I could have sliced tomatoes with it. And then the stew. A signature dish, the chef said, a nod to Emma's family tradition. A server placed a bowl in front of me. Emma swept in and dipped her spoon, all eyes on her. She made a show of blowing on it, then pressed it into my face with a little twist of her wrist that would have made an old rival proud. Try it, old hag. The room gasped as one body. Some laughed. Some didn't know if they were allowed. The maitre d' moved a step, then stopped, trained by years to serve silence before conflict. The hot slickness ran down my cheek into the collar of my dress. I felt a burn and then a coldness so complete it felt like a new skin sliding over the old. And then the shout by the bar. She's a billionaire. The phones lifted like a congregation. Someone read a headline aloud. Local investor backed frozen foods unicorn. Sale closes at noon. There was a photograph of me at 22, holding a tray of lemon bars outside the First Church kitchen. My maiden name spelled correctly. My face different, but not. I had given the reporter that picture and nothing else. He had promised not to publish until the embargo lifted. The embargo had lifted exactly 5 minutes before the stew landed on my cheek. Timing is a trickster. Or maybe timing is a friend when you have finally learned to be your own. Emma's eyes flicked to the screen nearest her, then to me, then to the old chandelier as if the light were suddenly too hot. "Is this a joke?" she said, but her voice had lost its polish. "You lied to us." "You never asked," I said. Daniel walked toward me as if through sand. He stopped 2 steps away, hands half raised, the way you reach for something you aren't sure you can touch. "Mom," he said, his voice careful, "is this true?" "Which part?" I asked. "The stew or the rest?" He swallowed. "Why didn't you tell me?" What answer would satisfy a son whose heart had learned to beat to applause? "Because I wanted to know who you were in a room without microphones," I said. "I'm still learning." Emma's mother arrived in a rustle of silk. "We should go somewhere private," she said, but her gaze skipped over me and landed on the nearest phone. "Control the narrative." "You wanted a moment," I said to Emma. "This is a moment." It would have been easy then to let the room take me, a wave that lifts, 100 hands that usher you onto a chair or a throne. But ease is how you get lost. I had not come this far to become someone else's story. I turned to the maitre d', whose name was Lila, who had been at this venue for 19 years, who could move 100 people out of a burning building without raising her voice. "Lila," I said, "please bring the first aid kit to the kitchen." Her eyes flicked to mine. She nodded, relief passing over her face like a cool cloth. She led me quickly through the door, past gleaming pans and the hot breath of ovens, to the staff sink and the quiet stainless steel table where bruised herbs wait to become beautiful again. The chef hovered, furious. "I will throw her out," he said. "I will." "You will do your job," I said. "Feed the guests. Make it the best meal you've ever served." Lila handed me a damp cloth and a little packet of burn cream. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "We should have—" "No," I said. "You should have done exactly what you did. You work for the owner. I am the owner, and I am asking you to bring me my bag." Lila froze. In the kitchen's hum, I could hear the sentence land. She did not look surprised for long. She nodded again and disappeared. When she came back with my bag, I took out the small fireproof envelope I carry when my life might need proof. Inside was a letter on the venue's letterhead, signed by me, lodged with the county clerk, naming me as managing member. There was also a stack of copies of a document my lawyer had recommended and I had customized, a notice of trespass and a request for civil standby, to be used if a guest's behavior endangered staff or other guests. The language was boring. Boring language saves lives. "Shall I call security?" Lila asked. "Not yet," I said. "We are not here to make a scene. We are here to make a point." I returned to the ballroom with the cool of the kitchen on my cheek and the paper in my hand. The room's roar settled to a buzz when the band saw me and changed songs. Instinct, good training. Emma stood at the head table, talking fast to members of her bridal party, who looked at her like a television stuck on a channel they were embarrassed to have chosen. Daniel stood alone, fiddling with his cufflinks. I went to the bandleader first. "You're doing beautifully," I said. "Please play the bride's requested playlist for 20 more minutes. Then go to the waltz set." "Yes, ma'am," he said, eyes alive. He had guessed or been told by a kitchen ghost. At the microphone, Emma's sister was saying something about resilience. I waited, hands folded, until she stopped. "May I?" I asked, and took the microphone without touching her. She stepped back, flushing. "Thank you," I said to the room. "I will be brief. This is what I said, and I say it to you because women my age often do not take microphones. When we do, we are hungry, or we are tired, or by God, we are ready. I came today to watch my son marry a woman he loves," I began. "I came ready to celebrate. Some of you know me as the woman who brings lemon bars to choir practice. Some of you know me as the woman who buys secondhand sweaters and knows how to remove stains with club soda and patience. Some of you, I am learning, know me as an investor. All of you now know I am not poor. Money does not make a person good or bad. It is a magnifier. It takes a whisper and makes it loud. Today, something was made loud. I did not look at Emma then. I looked at Daniel. He was pale, staring at the tablecloth as if it had turned into a map he had never learned to read. "I have made mistakes with my children," I said. "I have been stingy with praise and generous with second chances. I have told the truth when a lie would have tasted better. I kept my finances private because I wanted my children to grow into themselves without counting my coins. Maybe that was wrong. But I will tell you what is not wrong. Preventing violence disguised as a joke." Emma's mouth opened. She looked to the side, searching for someone to grin at, someone to mirror her. Mirrors are useless when there's only one face in them. "Assault is not a tradition," I said. "Assault is not content. It is an act. It has consequences." I held up the notice. "I own this venue," I said, and the ripple that went through the room felt like wind moving across a wheat field, soft at first, then a rush. "I bought it 3 months ago. I kept the staff. I kept the chef. I kept the prices at a level where teachers and nurses can still afford a party. I did not expect to use my authority today. I hoped to be only a mother with a crooked corsage. But life has a way of asking you to step into the role you wrote for yourself in the margin." I looked at Emma. "You assaulted me in front of my family. This is your warning. You will not touch me again. You will not instruct others to touch me. You will not harass the staff. If you do, the police will escort you out. The party will go on without you. Do you understand?" Her lips pulled back from her teeth. "You can't—" "I can," I said, "and I will, for their sake." I nodded toward the staff at the edges of the room, the ones who had seen 1,000 little violences and swallowed them for a paycheck. I turned back to the guests. "Please eat," I said. "Please dance. There are small boxes near the exit. If you want to give a gift in our family's name, take one. Each contains a card. Choose a local charity, and we'll match it." I had stocked those boxes the night before, thinking they would sit there like polite fruit no one touched. Now hands reached for them, cautiously at first, then with relief. I set the microphone down. The band found a beat. The room inhaled and remembered how to be a room again. Clinking glasses, murmured apologies, children wheeling between legs, a small wave of laughter as someone's uncle did something with his knees the human body shouldn't. Emma stood motionless, a sparrow that had flown into a window and didn't know which way sky was. Her mother tugged at her sleeve. She pulled free. "You're not going to get away with this," she said, low, as I passed. "You think people like you can—" "People like me?" I asked. "Women who worked 2 jobs and still showed up? Women who hide dollar bills in flour canisters and take them out years later to build a roof that doesn't leak? Women who know that rich is just another word for responsible and poor is often a synonym for invisible? Which people, Emma?" Her mouth opened, closed, opened. "Go enjoy your party," I said. "Or don't. But remember, this is your wedding day. The first story you will tell your children about your marriage is being written right now. Is this the first chapter you wanted?" She turned away. Her shoulders shook. I could not tell whether she was crying or shivering off a skin that had stopped fitting. I found Daniel by the dessert table, staring at a cake so elaborate it looked like architecture. He had chosen it. He had presented it to me as if it were a grant proposal. Now he looked small in front of it, a child in a museum. "Mom," he said, "I can't believe you did that." "Which part?" I asked. "Protecting the staff? Telling the truth? Buying a building without consulting my grown son?" "You humiliated us," he said, but his voice was child-tired, not angry. "You always have to make it about you." "I didn't pour stew on anyone," I said, "and I didn't post a headline." He rubbed his forehead. "You should have told me." "How would that have changed today?" I asked. Would she have kept the spoon to herself if she thought money would splash back? He looked at his hands. "She gets carried away. Children get carried away," I said softly. "Grown-ups carry themselves." He flinched. "Emma's under a lot of pressure. The planning, the guests, her brand partners. Daniel." I waited until he looked up. "Your wife assaulted me. Not because she was under pressure. Because she could. Because she thought the room would clap." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, the boy I loved was nearer to the surface. "I'll talk to her," he said. "Don't talk to her for me," I replied. "Talk to her for you. Do you want to be married to someone who weaponizes a spoon?" He almost smiled. Then he didn't. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, "you dance. And then you come by my house tomorrow at noon. Alone." He blinked. "Why?" "Because I have something for you, and because we need to decide whether the trust I set up for you will be paused this year or active." I did not raise my voice on that word. Active. He heard it anyway. "You put a clause in?" he asked, color draining. "What clause?" "Respect," I said simply. "It pays out when you practice it." He stared. "That's not legal." "It is," I said. "And even if it weren't, it's mine." Someone called his name. He looked over his shoulder. "Please," he said, "not today." "Not today," I agreed. "Tomorrow." The party resumed its rhythm. There were plenty of people who did not know what had happened, and those who did made their own choices about how much to pretend. That's another truth about money. It makes pretending easier. I danced with my granddaughter, who had found a necklace under a chair and wore it like a crown. I danced with the chef's mother, a tiny woman in a navy dress who told me I had done the right thing and then showed me how to waltz without stepping on anyone's toes. When I left, the air was cold and clean. The parking lot lights hummed. Lila walked me to my car. "We have your back," she said. "Always." "I know," I said. "That's why I bought this place." At home, I set a kettle on and changed into a sweater that had already forgiven me for everything I'd asked of it. I stood at the sink and washed my face with cool water. The skin was red but not blistered. The mirror showed an old woman with bright eyes, the kind my mother used to have after making a decision. I slept with the window open and dreamed of kitchens that never ran out of sugar. Daniel arrived at 12:08, flowers in a gas station sleeve. He set them down on the table like an apology he was practicing. I made coffee and put 2 lemon bars on a plate. He smiled despite himself. "I hated these when I was 15, he said. "You hated everything when you were 15, I said. We sat. He took a napkin and turned it over in his hands. "She says you provoked her." "How?" I asked. "By being in the room she wanted to own?" He closed his eyes. "She said you've been undermining her, that you denied the honeymoon to embarrass her, that you've been talking about a prenup behind her back. I talked about it in front of her, I said, at my kitchen table. You were there. He nodded. She says you think she's after your money. Is she? He looked at the floor. She likes nice things, and she thinks I deserve them. What do you deserve, Bata? I asked. Not what she thinks. What do you think? He picked up a lemon bar and put it down. I wanted to show her I could take care of her. She's used to a certain lifestyle. Paid by whom? I asked. He flushed. Mom. It was a question, I said gently, not an accusation. He shook his head. I don't know how to fix this. You don't have to fix everything, I said. You have to decide who you are. He rubbed his face. What did you want to tell me about the trust? I slid the envelope across the table. He opened it like it might bite. He read the first page, skimmed the second, stopped at the third. This clause, he said slowly, public humiliation of immediate family. It protects you, too, I said. If I go on television and call you a fool, you can pause my giving? If your sister writes a book about your teenage years, she loses her distribution for a time. It's not about punishing. It's about teaching. Money is a tutor if you let it be, he kept reading. Employment clause, he muttered. Sobriety, no gambling, no violence. Charitable hours. That one's my favorite, I said. You can choose the cause. He looked up. You're serious? As a pail of water, I said. He laughed, then stopped. So you're cutting me off? I'm pausing the discretionary part, I said. You still have your salary, your health insurance, your emergency cushion, the things I gave all of you without asking for anything back, but the extra, vacations, car upgrades, the brand building loans, that pauses for a year. At the end of the year, if the clause has been honored, it resumes. His mouth opened. Because of what Emma did? Because of what you didn't, I said. You didn't stand between your wife and your mother when your wife raised a spoon like a weapon. You didn't apologize in the moment. You didn't even bring me a napkin. He closed his eyes. I froze. I know, I said. Freezing is a choice too. He put the papers back in the envelope with careful motions. She's going to hate this. She already hates me, I said lightly. Maybe now she'll hate me for reasons I respect. He shoved his hair back. What do you want me to do? What you promised to do in front of 200 people yesterday, I said. Protect, provide, persevere, start at home. He stared at the table. She wants to manage my accounts, says it will be easier. Do you want that? I asked. I thought it would show trust. He swallowed. But yesterday, trust is not giving someone the keys and hoping they don't drive you into a wall, I said. Trust is driving together and taking turns at the wheel. Tell her you'll manage your accounts with a planner. Share screens in the meetings. Listen more than you talk. If she refuses, ask why. He nodded, slow. She won't like it. Will you like becoming a man you don't recognize? I asked. He looked at me then, really looked. How could you keep something so big from me? I could have told him a lot of things. The truth I chose was this. Because love and money are two trains running on parallel tracks, I said. I didn't want the tracks to cross unless the bridge was strong. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. I'm sorry, he said, for yesterday, for not... I accept, I said before he could drown. Now go home. Don't demand an apology as a receipt for the flowers you'll buy. Don't explain the trust like it's a punishment. Tell her who you want to be. Then listen. He stood, wavered, then leaned down and kissed my head like he had when he was 10 and had broken a window and expected to be exiled forever. I love you, he said. I love you too. He left with the envelope. I sat quietly, listening to the house remember its own quiet. I thought of my daughter Leah, practical and fierce in a way that landed softly. She had texted last night. You good? I had sent back a photograph of the lemon bars and a thumbs up, then a second text. Lunch tomorrow? She replied with the little heart that means everything and nothing. When Leah arrived, she brought soup in a thermos, and a look on her face I recognized from the years when her children were small and the world kept inventing new ways to surprise her. I knew, she said, as soon as she put down her bag, about the money, not the number. I knew you were hiding a forest behind a fence. She smiled. You always did like fences. I like gates, I said, with hinges that don't squeak. We ate soup. I told her a little about the trust, about the clause, about buying the venue. She listened without interrupting, a kindness she has practiced since she learned that her father always talked right into other people's sentences. You're going to get called names, she said finally. Controlling, manipulative, cold. I've been called worse by better, I said. She laughed. Do you want me to talk to him? No, I said. He needs to choose. If he comes to you, tell him to go back to his wife and talk. And tell him to come to me when he's ready to listen. She nodded. And Emma? Emma has a choice too, I said. She can build a life with a man she respects, or she can build an audience. Audience is easier, life is heavier. We'll see what she can carry. Leah stirred her soup. Do you remember when Dad dropped the Thanksgiving turkey? How could I forget? I said. He cried over a bird. He knew the difference between a mistake and a habit, Leah said softly. Oh, yesterday wasn't a mistake. No, I said. It was practice. For a few days the house was quiet and the phone was loud. People I hadn't heard from in years sent messages. Proud of you. Can't believe. Wow. Some wanted to sell me things. Some wanted to borrow me. I answered the ones that smelled like love and ignored the ones that smelled like hunger disguised as opportunity. Daniel called 3 days later. We need to talk, he said, and my heart did that old human thing, rattled the bars like a zoo animal. Come over, I said. Emma opened the door when I arrived. Her face was thinner. The gloss had rubbed off. She had not expected me to see her without the makeup that made her look like the best version of a stranger. She stepped aside. Daniel will be home in 10, she said. Traffic. We stood in the foyer like two people waiting for a storm to decide whether it was going to ruin the picnic. Can I get you water? She asked. Tea, I said, if it isn't an imposition. She took a breath. It is, she said, then shook her head. No, sorry, I'm not good at this. Neither am I said, but we're here. In the kitchen, she moved quietly. She had always moved with choreographed noise. The hush suited her. She set a cup in front of me. I shouldn't have done it, she said, staring at the kettle. I don't know why You wanted to show the room you could, I said. You wanted to make me small. You misjudged the size of things. Her face crumpled and then reassembled. Do you hate me? I don't waste the energy it takes to hate, I said. I reserve that for grief. Are you pregnant? Her eyes snapped to mine. This is the problem with being a mother for long enough. You learn to see the quiet tells. She swallowed. We were trying, she said. We are trying. I nodded. Then learn now. She sat. Learn what? How to love without measuring, I said. How to throw away a script when the real person in front of you says a line that isn't in it. She stared at the table. I thought if I showed them I was strong, they'd stop. Underestimating me. She glanced at me. You never underestimate. No, that's not true. You underestimated my ability to hurt you. I misestimated my ability to protect myself, I said. I corrected that. She let out a tiny laugh that surprised both of us. You did. Daniel, I said, needs to be a husband, not an audience. Her mouth tightened. You think he worships me? I think he wants to, I said. Worship is easier than partnership. It's lighter until it crushes you. The door opened. Daniel came in with a grocery bag and a look that had been practiced in a rear-view mirror. He set the bag on the counter and took in the two of us, seated like students who had agreed not to pass notes. Thanks for coming, he said to me. I asked you both because we are both the problem and the solution, I said. Go on. He swallowed. We saw a planner. He set up a budget. We're selling the car, he said, glancing at Emma. She lifted her chin. We're selling the car, she repeated. I can walk. I can bus. You can breathe, I said. That's enough for today. Daniel pushed the bag toward me. I brought soup, he said shyly. Chicken noodle. I remember you like it too salty. I like it how it is, I said. He smiled as if I'd absolved him of something ancient. We ate in a quiet that felt like a truce negotiated by children who had learned the hard way that doors slam louder in small apartments. After, Emma spoke without looking at me. I'll apologize, she said. Publicly, I'll make a statement. Don't, I said. An apology crafted for strangers teaches you to act for strangers. Apologize to the people you hurt, the staff, Lila, the chef, me. Then stop doing things that require apologies. She nodded a little. I wrote them cards, she said, surprising me again. I didn't know if it was stupid. It isn't, I said. Daniel took my hand then, and I felt his palm, calloused finally from work he'd been doing that didn't announce itself. I want to earn the trust, he said, not just get the money. You will, I said, or you won't. Either way, you'll learn. The months that followed looked ordinary from the outside. A couple making meals at home, a man taking on fewer brand projects and more clients who paid late but paid, a woman who moved her selfies to the back burner and her appointments to the front. But ordinary is what saves you when the extraordinary has tried to set your house on fire. There was one more turn, because there always is. In spring, a message arrived from a friend of a friend who worked nights in a hotel on the edge of town. Thought you should know, it read. She's here with someone who isn't your son. The clerk included a photograph of a registration card with a familiar slanted signature and a different last name. I sat with the message for a day and an evening and another morning. Anger is not a dog you let off the leash without checking the yard. When I finally sent it on, I sent it to Daniel with a single sentence. If this is a lie, I will owe you an apology. If it is not, you owe yourself one. He came over that night with a face that had learned something it didn't want to. It's his business partner, he said, the one who calls her when I'm in meetings. Are you surprised? I asked. He took a breath that sounded like surrender and victory at the same time. No, he said, I am not. What will you do? Not become a man I despise, he said. I talked to a lawyer. We're filing a post-nuptial agreement. She can stay if she wants. If she doesn't get to keep the china or half of what I haven't earned yet. And the trust? I asked. I don't want it, he said, and my heart lurched. Not now. Not until my life doesn't look like a story I got paid to tell. I reached for his hand. You're allowed to accept help. I know, he said, but I want to know what my life weighs. I let him go. The postnup was signed with a ceremony more solemn than the wedding vows. Emma's hands shook for reasons that had nothing to do with music. She stayed for a while, and then she didn't. When she left, she took her dresses and her ring and the brand deals that had begun to wilt. She did not take the recipes. She did not take my son's laugh, which came back to him the way you find a toy at the bottom of a box you forgot to mark fragile. We are not a miracle. We are a family. We eat soup too salty and lemon bars too sweet, and sometimes we go 3 days without saying the things that would have made those 3 days quieter. But when I walk into the venue, I own and watch a bride's grandmother, stooped but fierce, dance with a child who doesn't yet know what the world will ask of her. I think, we found a way to make a room safe. We found a way to say no that sounded like yes to the right things. Emma sent me a letter last month. It was 3 lines. I am sorry. I was wrong. I am learning. I wrote back 2 lines. Thank you. Keep going. What of the money? It sits where money sits and behaves or misbehaves according to the weather. I use it to fix roofs and fund scholarships and make sure the choir has enough hymnals and the staff at the venue gets raises without having to ask. I use it to pay for the electrician's kids' braces and to buy a bus pass for the woman who cleans the hall with a tenderness that would shame most preachers. I use it to buy peaches by the crate and share them until the whole block smells like August. Sometimes people recognize me now. They say, "You're the billionaire," as if it is a profession. I say, "I am a grandmother," because that is a profession. When my granddaughter asks about the wedding, because children collect family stories like bright stones, I tell her this. Once someone used a spoon like a dagger, and the room forgot itself. Then the room remembered. People do, if you give them a chance. And if I'm ever asked what I would have done if the headline had not appeared when it did, if no one had gasped, if no one had looked at their phones and realized the old woman with stew on her face had been holding a tall iron rod for years, I say this, I would have done the same. I would have gone to the kitchen and washed my cheek in cool water. I would have come back to the room and taken the microphone. I would have said the boring words that save lives. I would have given the staff the kind of protection that does not depend on luck. Because revenge is not always a fire. Sometimes it is a lock that clicks shut on the door of a room where harm used to enter like it had a key. Daniel comes over on Sundays. He brings soups that are better now, because patience is a spice. He asks about the tenants and the duplexes and the babble of numbers I still love. He dates a woman who laughs with her eyes and knows how to make a meal from what's on hand. He has learned to say, "I don't know," like a promise, instead of a failure. How could my own son do this to me? I asked myself on the wedding day, when the world went white and loud. The better question, I see now, was, how could my son learn to stop? And the answer was the same as it's always been. By watching, by listening, by being told the truth without being turned away. The chandelier at the venue doesn't flicker anymore. The electrician says we gave it more current than it will ever need. I like that. I like the idea of a light that will not apologize for being bright. When the couples dance under it, I sometimes stand at the edge of the room and close my eyes. I think of a boy asleep on my shoulder in church, of a young woman with a spoon and a lesson she didn't expect to learn, of a room that remembered how to be kind. And I think, this is wealth, not the number beside my name, the muscle to make a room behave. If you ever find yourself at a wedding where the music stops and the air goes thin and someone lifts a hand to make a point with your body, I hope you hear my voice inside your head, old and steady. Go to the kitchen. Cool the burn. Come back to the room. Take the microphone. Say the boring words. Then build something so the next grandmother doesn't need to.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.